Book 13. Odysseus leaves Scheria and returns to Ithaca. Odysseus finished his incredible tale, and the entire hall, filled with people, fell silent. They were utterly spellbound, hanging on his every word. After a moment, King Alcinous broke the quiet. King Alcinous said,
Odysseus, now that you've reached my home, I'm sure you'll return to your own without any more trouble, no matter how much you've suffered. But to the rest of you, who come here every night to drink my finest wine and listen to my bard, I have something to say. Our guest has already gathered all the clothes, crafted gold, and other precious items you brought for him. So now, let each of us give him an additional gift, a large tripod and a cauldron. We'll cover the cost together, sharing the burden. It wouldn't be fair to expect individuals to bear the weight of such generous gifts alone, would it?
Everyone agreed to the plan, and they all went home to bed. When rosy-fingered Dawn, child of morning, appeared, they rushed to the ship with their cauldrons. King Alcinous boarded the ship and made sure all the items were securely fastened beneath the benches, so nothing would come loose and hurt the rowers. Afterward, they went to King Alcinous's house for dinner. The king sacrificed a bull to honor Zeus, the lord of all. They grilled the meat and enjoyed a wonderful dinner, while Demodocus, the beloved and inspired bard, sang for them. But Odysseus kept glancing at the sun, as if trying to hurry its setting. He desperately longed for the time to leave. Just as a farmer, who has spent all day plowing a fallow field with 2 oxen, thinks of supper and rejoices when night falls, knowing he can finally go home because his legs can barely carry him. So too did Odysseus rejoice the moment the sun went down. He immediately spoke to the Phaeacians, addressing King Alcinous in particular.
My king, and all of you here, farewell. Please pour your drink offerings and send me off with joy. You have fulfilled my heart's desire by giving me an escort and many gifts. May the heavens grant that I put all these to good use. I hope to find my wonderful wife living peacefully among friends. And may you, whom I leave behind, bring joy to your wives and children. May the heavens grant you every good blessing, and may no evil ever befall your people.
When Odysseus finished speaking, everyone who heard him agreed that he had spoken wisely and consented to his escort. So King Alcinous said to his servant,
Pontonous, mix some wine and pass it around to everyone. We will offer a prayer to Father Zeus and bless our guest on his journey.
Pontonous mixed the wine and passed it to everyone in turn. From their seats, the others poured drink offerings to the blessed gods who live in the heavens. But Odysseus stood up and placed a 2-handled cup into Queen Arate's hands. Odysseus said,
Farewell, Queen. May you live in peace from this day forward, forever until old age and death, the common fate of all humankind, claim you. I am leaving now. May you be happy in this house with your children, your people, and King Alcinous.
As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped across the threshold. King Alcinous sent a man to lead him to his ship and the seashore. Queen Arate also sent some maidservants with him. One maidservant carried a clean shirt and cloak, another his sturdy strongbox, and a third brought grain and wine. When they reached the water's edge, the crew loaded these items, along with all the meat and drink, onto the ship. For Odysseus, they spread a rug and a linen sheet on the deck and the stern of the ship, so he could sleep soundly. Odysseus also boarded and lay down without a word. The crew took their places and untied the hawser from the pierced stone that had held the ship. As they began to row out to sea, Odysseus fell into a deep, sweet slumber, almost like death itself. The ship shot forward like a 4-horse chariot driven by a whip. Its prow arched like the neck of a powerful stallion, and a great wave of dark blue water foamed violently in its wake. The ship held its course steadily. Even a falcon, the swiftest of all birds, couldn't have kept up with it. So the ship cut through the water. Inside lay Odysseus, a man as cunning as the gods themselves. He slept peacefully, completely forgetting all the pain he had endured on the battlefield and all the trials he had faced on the weary sea. As the bright star heralding dawn appeared, the ship drew near to land. On Ithaca, there was a harbor belonging to the old sea god Phorcys. It lay nestled between 2 headlands that jutted out into the sea, enclosing the harbor. These headlands protected the harbor from the fierce winds and waves outside, so once inside, a ship could anchor safely without even needing to be tied up. At the head of this harbor stood a large olive tree, and nearby was a beautiful, arched cavern. This cave was sacred to the Naiad nymphs. Inside the cave were stone mixing bowls and wine jars, and bees made their hives there. There were also huge stone looms where the nymphs wove their sea-purple robes, a truly wondrous sight. And clear water always flowed within the cave. It had two entrances. Mortals could enter the cave through the north entrance, but the south entrance was far more mysterious. Humans couldn't possibly get in that way. It was a path only for the gods. Since they knew this place well, they steered the ship into the harbor. The ship came in so fast that half its length ran aground on the shore. As soon as they landed, their first task was to lift Odysseus, still wrapped in his rug and linen sheet, out of the ship. They gently laid him on the sand, still deeply asleep. Then they unloaded the gifts that Athena had persuaded the Phaeacians to give Odysseus. They gathered all the gifts together by the root of the olive tree, away from the road, fearing that some passerby might steal them before Odysseus awoke. Once everything was done, the Phaeacians quickly headed back home. But Poseidon had not forgotten the threats he had made against Odysseus. He sought counsel from Zeus.
Father Zeus,
Poseidon said,
if mortals like the Phaeacians, who are my own people, show such little regard for me, then I will no longer be respected among you gods. I said I would let Odysseus return home after he had suffered enough. I never said he would never get home at all, for I knew you had already nodded your head and promised he would. But now the Phaeacians have brought him in a ship, fast asleep, and landed him on Ithaca. What's more, they've loaded him with more magnificent gifts of bronze, gold, and fine clothing than he would ever have brought back from Troy, even if he had received his full share of the spoils and returned without trouble.
Zeus answered,
Lord of the earthquake, what are you talking about? It's unthinkable that the gods would disrespect you. It would be monstrous for them to insult a god as ancient and honored as you are. However, when it comes to mortals, if any of them act arrogantly or treat you disrespectfully, it's always up to you to deal with them as you see fit. So do as you please. I would have done so at once.
Poseidon replied,
If I weren't worried about displeasing you, Father. Now, I want to wreck the Phaeacian ship as it returns from its escort. This will stop them from escorting anyone in the future. And I also want to bury their city under a huge mountain. My good friend.
Zeus answered,
I recommend that at the very moment the city people are watching the ship return, you turn it into a rock near the land, one that still looks like a ship. This will astonish everyone, and then you can bury their city under the mountain.
Earth encircling Poseidon heard this and went to Scheria, where the Phaeacians lived. He waited there until the swiftly sailing ship came close. Then he approached the ship, turned it into stone, and with the flat of his hand, drove it down, rooting it into the seabed. After doing all this, he vanished. The Phaeacians began whispering among themselves. One person turned to their neighbor and said,
Good heavens! Who could have rooted that ship in the sea just as it was entering the harbor? We saw it whole and complete only a moment ago.
They talked like this, but they had no idea what had happened. Then Alcinous spoke.
Now I remember my father's old prophecy. He said that Poseidon would be furious with us for safely escorting everyone across the sea, and one day he would wreck a Phaeacian ship returning from an escort and bury our city under a high mountain. My old father always used to say this, and now it's all coming true. So now, let's all do as I say. First, we must stop escorting people who come here in the future. Second, let's sacrifice 12 chosen bulls to Poseidon, so he may have mercy on us and not bury our city under the high mountain.
When the people heard this, they were terrified and prepared the bulls. The leaders and kings of the Phaeacians were praying to Poseidon, standing around his altar. Just then, Odysseus finally woke up on his own homeland. He had been away for so long that he didn't recognize it as his home. What's more, Athena, daughter of Zeus, had created a thick fog. This was so no one would notice his return. Athena planned to tell Odysseus everything he needed to know. She wanted to make sure his wife, fellow citizens, and friends wouldn't recognize him until he had taken revenge on the wicked suitors. So, everything looked unfamiliar to him. The long roads, the harbors, the steep cliffs, even the beautiful trees. As he looked around his homeland, everything seemed to have changed. In despair, Odysseus slapped his thighs with both hands and cried out loudly. He cried out,
"Oh no! What kind of people have I landed among? Are they wild and uncivilized? Or are they kind and welcoming to strangers? Where can I put all this treasure? And where am I supposed to go? I wish I had stayed with the Phaeacians, or found another great leader who would have treated me well and given me an escort. Now I don't know where to put my treasures, and I can't just leave them here for someone else to take. Truly, the Phaeacian leaders and kings didn't treat me fairly. They dropped me off in the wrong country. They promised to take me to Ithaca, but they didn't keep their word. May Zeus, the protector of those who plead for help, punish them. Zeus watches everyone and punishes those who do wrong. Still, I should count my belongings and check if the crew took anything."
He counted his beautiful copper pots and cauldrons, his gold, and all his clothes. Luckily, nothing was missing. But he was still sad, believing he hadn't returned home. He walked up and down the shore of the echoing sea, lamenting his cruel fate. Just then, the goddess Athena appeared. She was disguised as a young shepherd, delicate and noble in appearance. A fine cloak was folded twice over her shoulders. She wore sandals on her graceful feet and carried a spear in her hand. Odysseus was delighted to see her and went straight up to her. Odysseus said,
"My friend, you are the first person I've met in this land. I greet you, and I beg you to be kind to me. Please protect my belongings and me. I embrace your knees and plead with you as if you were a god. So, tell me the truth. What land and country is this? Who are its people? Am I on an island, or is this the coast of a continent?"
The goddess Athena replied,
"Stranger, you must be very naive, or you've come from a very distant land, not to know this country. This is a famous place, known to everyone from east to west. It's rugged, not ideal for chariots, but it's certainly not a bad island. It gets water from rain and dew, so it produces plenty of grain and wine. It also raises many cattle and goats. All kinds of trees grow here, and there are many springs that never run dry. So, the name Ithaca is known even as far as Troy. And as I understand it, Troy is a long way from this Achaean land."
Odysseus was thrilled to hear Athena tell him he was in his own country. He began to answer, but with his natural cunning, he didn't speak the truth. Instead, he made up a false story. Odysseus said,
"I heard of Ithaca when I was in Crete across the sea. Now, it seems I've arrived here with all these treasures. I've left just as much treasure behind for my children, but I'm on the run. That's because I killed Orsilochus, son of Idomeneus, the fastest runner in Crete. He tried to rob me of the spoils I'd gained from Troy, after so much hardship and danger on the battlefield and the weary sea. He claimed I hadn't served his father loyally as a vassal in Troy, but had acted as an independent ruler. So I hid by the roadside with one of my men. When he came into town from the countryside, I speared him to death. It was a very dark night, and no one saw us, so no one knew I had killed him. As soon as I had done it, I went to a ship and begged the Phoenician owners to take me on board and drop me off in Pylos or Elis, where the Epeans rule. I gave them enough spoils to satisfy them. They meant no harm, but the wind blew them off course. We sailed until we reached this place by night. We barely made it into the harbor. We were all starving, but no one said a word about supper. We all went ashore and lay down just as we were. I was so tired that I fell asleep immediately. So, they took my belongings out of the ship and placed them next to me, where I lay on the sand. Then they sailed away to Cydonia, leaving me here alone and in great distress."
That was Odysseus's story, but the goddess Athena smiled and gently stroked him with her hand. Then she transformed into a beautiful, stately, and wise woman and said,
"Truly, no one could surpass you in cunning and storytelling, not even if you were up against a god. You daring rogue! Full of tricks and tireless in deceit, can't you stop your schemes and instinctive lies, even now that you're back in your own country? But let's not talk about that anymore. Both of us can use deception when needed. You are the most skilled counselor and speaker among all mortals, and among the gods, I have no equal in diplomacy and cleverness. Didn't you recognize me, Athena, daughter of Zeus? I have always been with you, watching over you through all your troubles. I'm the one who made the Phaeacians like you so much. And now I've come here again to talk with you and help you hide the treasures the Phaeacians gave you. I also want to tell you about the troubles waiting for you at home. You must face these problems, but don't tell anyone, man or woman, that you've returned home. Endure everything, and silently put up with everyone's arrogance.
Odysseus replied,
Goddess, a person can know many things, but you change your appearance so often that it's hard to recognize you when we meet. However, I know this much for sure, you were very kind to me while we Achaeans fought before Troy. But from the day we plundered Priam's city and boarded our ships, and the heavens scattered us, from that day, Athena, I saw you no more. I don't remember you ever coming to my ship to help me when I was in trouble. I had to wander, sick and sorrowful, until the gods delivered me from evil. Then I reached the city of the Phaeacians, where you encouraged me and led me into town. So now, I beg you in your father's name, tell me the truth. I don't believe I'm truly back in Ithaca. I think I'm in some other country, and you're mocking and deceiving me with everything you've said. So, tell me truly, have I really returned to my homeland?
The goddess Athena replied,
You always think that way. That's why I can't abandon you in your troubles. You are so convincing, clever, and cunning. Anyone else, returning from such a long voyage, would have rushed home immediately to see his wife and children. But you don't seem interested in asking about them or hearing any news until you've dealt with your wife, who grieves for you in vain at home, shedding tears day and night without peace. As for my not coming near you, I was never worried about you. I was certain you would return safely, even if you lost all your men. And I didn't want to quarrel with my uncle Poseidon, who has never forgiven you for blinding his son. However, I will now show you the lay of the land, and then perhaps you will believe me. This is the harbor of the old sea god Phorcys, and an olive tree grows at its entrance. Nearby is a cave sacred to the Naiad nymphs. Here, too, is the arched cavern where you offered many excellent hecatombs to the nymphs. And this is the wooded Mount Neritum.
As Athena finished speaking, the goddess cleared away the mist, and the land appeared. Odysseus rejoiced to be on his homeland again, and kissed the fertile earth. He raised his hands and prayed to the nymphs, saying,
Naiad nymphs, daughters of great Zeus, I thought I would never see you again. Now I greet you with all my love. If Zeus's mighty daughter grants me life and helps my son grow into a man, I will offer you sacrifices as I did in the old days.
Athena replied,
Take heart, and don't worry about that. First, let's quickly store your belongings safely in the cave. Then, we'll figure out the best way to handle everything.
Athena went into the cave to find the safest hiding spots. Meanwhile, Odysseus brought all the treasures the Phaeacians had given him, gold, bronze, and fine clothing. They carefully hid everything, and Athena sealed the cave entrance with a stone. Then the two sat by the root of a large olive tree and began to discuss how to destroy the wicked suitors. Athena said to Odysseus,
Noble son of Laertes, think about how you'll deal with these shameless men. For 3 years, they've been acting like masters in your house, wooing your wife and showering her with wedding gifts. Your wife laments your absence, yet she sends hopeful and encouraging messages to each of them. But in truth, her words mean the exact opposite of what she says.
Odysseus replied,
Goddess, to be honest, if you hadn't given me this timely information, I would have met the same tragic end in my own house as Agamemnon. Advise me on the best way to get my revenge. Stand by my side and fill my heart with courage, just like the day we brought down Troy. If you help me now as you did then, Goddess, I can fight 300 enemies if you are with me.
Athena said,
Leave that to me. Once we begin, I won't let you out of my sight for a moment. And I imagine some of those who are devouring your wealth will soon stain the pavement with their blood and brains. First, I will disguise you so no one will recognize you. I will cover your body with wrinkles and make all your golden hair disappear. I will dress you in clothes that will disgust everyone who sees you. I will dim your beautiful eyes and make you look ugly to the suitors, your wife, and the son you left behind. After that, go at once to your swineherd, who looks after your pigs. He has always been loyal to you and is devoted to Penelope and your son. You'll find him feeding his pigs near the Arethusa spring, by a place called Raven Rock, where they fatten on beech mast and spring water. Stay with him and find out how things are going. Meanwhile, I will go to Sparta to meet your son. He is with King Menelaus in Lacedaemon, trying to find out if you are still alive.
Odysseus asked,
But why, since you knew everything, didn't you tell him? Did you want him to sail around facing all sorts of hardships while others were eating up his estate?
Athena replied,
Don't worry about him. I sent him so that people would speak well of his journey. He's not in any trouble at all. He's staying very comfortably with King Menelaus, surrounded by every kind of luxury. The suitors have gone out to sea and are waiting for him, planning to kill him before he can get home. But I don't think they'll succeed. Instead, some of those who are now eating up your estate will find their own graves first.
As she spoke, Athena touched Odysseus with her wand, covering his body with wrinkles. She made all his golden hair disappear and withered the flesh all over his body. His naturally beautiful eyes became dim. She changed his clothes, giving him an old, tattered cloak and a tunic that was ripped, filthy, and stained with soot. For an outer garment, she gave him an undressed deerskin. She also gave him a staff and a worn-out bag with a twisted strap to sling over his shoulder. After making their plans, the two parted ways. The goddess went straight to Lacedaemon to bring Telemachus home. Book 14. Odysseus stays in Eumaeus' hut. Odysseus left the harbor and followed a rough, wooded path over the mountain ridge. He was looking for the swineherd Eumaeus, whom Athena had mentioned. Eumaeus was Odysseus's most loyal and efficient servant. Eumaeus had built a pigsty that was visible from afar, and he was sitting in front of his hut there. He had made the pigsty spacious and pleasant, allowing the pigs to roam freely. While his master Odysseus was away, he had built the pens from stones he gathered, without telling Penelope or Laertes, and fenced the top with thorn bushes. Outside, he had built a strong fence of closely set, split oak posts. Inside, there were 12 sties for the sows to rest in. 50 mother pigs wallowed in the mud in each sty. The boars slept outside, and there were far fewer of them. The suitors kept eating them, so the swineherd constantly had to send them his best boars. There were 360 boars in total, and the swineherd's 4 hounds, fierce as wolves, always slept with them. At that moment, the swineherd was making sandals from a sturdy ox hide. 3 of his men were out herding pigs, and the 4th had just been sent to town with a boar for the suitors. The suitors would sacrifice that boar and feast on its meat. The hounds spotted Odysseus and immediately charged, barking furiously. Odysseus quickly dropped his staff and sat down. He would have been torn apart by the dogs in his own home if the swineherd hadn't thrown down his ox hide, burst through the gate, and chased them off with shouts and stones. Then Eumaeus said to Odysseus,
Old man, those dogs nearly got you. That would have caused me a lot of trouble. The gods have already given me enough worries. I've lost the best master, and I grieve for him constantly. I have to tend pigs for others to eat, while he, if he's still alive, is probably starving in some distant land. Come inside. Once you've had your fill of bread and wine, tell me where you're from and all about your misfortunes.
The swineherd led Odysseus into the hut and invited him to sit. He spread a thick layer of rushes on the floor, then covered it with the shaggy, thick chamois skin he used for sleeping. Odysseus was pleased by this warm welcome. He said,
May Zeus and all the other gods grant your heart's desires in return for your kindness to me.
Eumaeus, the swineherd, replied,
Stranger, even if someone poorer than you came, it wouldn't be right for me to insult him. All strangers and beggars are sent by Zeus. You must be grateful for what you receive, because servants always live in fear when they serve young masters. That's my misfortune now. The heavens have prevented the return of the man who would have always been good to me and given me something of my own. He would have given me a house, land, a beautiful wife, and everything else a generous master grants a hard-working servant whose efforts the gods have blessed, as they have mine. If my master had grown old here, he would have done great things for me, but he is gone. I wish Helen's entire family were utterly destroyed, for she caused the death of so many good men. It was because of her that my master went to Ilion, the land of noble horses, to fight the Trojans for King Agamemnon.
As he spoke, Eumaeus tightened his belt and headed to the sties where the young piglets were penned. He chose 2 piglets, brought them back, and sacrificed them. He singed their bristles, cut up the meat, and skewered it. When the meat was cooked, he brought it all, still hot on the spits, and placed it before Odysseus. Odysseus sprinkled white barley meal over it. The swineherd then mixed wine in an ivy-wood bowl, sat opposite Odysseus, and urged him to begin eating.
Eat up, stranger,
he said.
This is a servant's pork dish. The fat pigs have to go to the suitors. They devour them without shame or hesitation. But the blessed gods don't approve of such disgraceful acts. They respect those who do what is lawful and right. Even fierce pirates who raid other lands, even if Zeus grants them their spoils, feel guilt and fear judgment once they've filled their ships and returned home. But some god seems to have told these suitors that Odysseus is dead. So, instead of returning to their own homes and proposing marriage in the usual way, they are forcefully squandering his estate without fear or restraint. Every day, from sunrise to sunset, they sacrifice not just 1 or 2, but many victims, and they drink the master's wine freely. My master was incredibly rich. No other great man in Ithaca or on the mainland was as wealthy as he was. He had as much as 20 men put together. I'll tell you what he had. On the mainland, he had 12 herds of cattle, 12 flocks of sheep, and 12 droves of pigs. His own men and hired strangers look after 12 widely scattered herds of goats. Here in Ithaca, he also kept enormous flocks of goats at the far end of the island, tended by excellent goatherds. Each of these goatherds sends the suitors the best goat from their flock every day. As for me, I'm in charge of the pigs you see here, and I constantly have to pick out the best I have and send them to the suitors.
As Eumaeus continued his story, Odysseus ate and drank ravenously, silently plotting his revenge. When Odysseus had eaten his fill and was satisfied, the swineherd brought his usual drinking bowl, filled it with wine, and offered it to Odysseus. Odysseus took the bowl, pleased, and said,
My friend, who was this rich and powerful master you speak of? The one who bought you and brought you here? You said he died fighting for King Agamemnon. Tell me who he was, in case I might have met him. Zeus and the other gods know I've traveled much, so I might be able to give you news of him.
Eumaeus replied,
Old man, no traveler who comes here with news will ever convince Odysseus's wife and son to believe his story. Still, wanderers looking for a place to sleep keep coming, spinning endless lies, not a single word of truth. Everyone who finds their way to Ithaca goes to my mistress and tells her falsehoods. She welcomes them, treats them lavishly, and asks them all sorts of questions, weeping the whole time, as women do when they've lost their husbands. You'll probably do the same, old man, making up a very convincing tale for a shirt and a cloak. But Odysseus has long since been torn to pieces by wolves and birds of prey, or eaten by the fish of the sea. His bones are likely buried deep in the sand on some foreign shore. He is dead and gone, and it's a terrible tragedy for all his friends, especially for me. Wherever I go, I'll never find a master as good as him, not even if I returned home to my mother and father where I was born and raised. I don't care so much about my parents now, though I would dearly love to see them again in my own country. It's the loss of Odysseus that grieves me most. Even though he's no longer here, I can't speak of him without reverence. He was very fond of me and took such good care of me that I will always honor his memory, wherever he may be.
Odysseus replied,
My friend, you are very certain, and you don't believe your master will return. But I will not only say it, I will swear that he is coming back. Don't give me any reward for my news until he has actually arrived. Then, if you wish, you may give me a good shirt and cloak. I am in great need right now, but I won't take anything until then. For I hate a man who lets poverty tempt him into lying, as much as I hate the fires of Hades. I swear by Zeus, by the sacred rites of hospitality, and by this very hearth of Odysseus where I now sit, that everything I've said will surely come to pass. Odysseus will return this very year. By the end of this month and the beginning of the next, he will be here to take vengeance on all those who are mistreating his wife and son.
Eumaeus, the swineherd, answered,
Old man, you won't get paid for bringing good news, and Odysseus will never come home. Drink your wine in peace, and let's talk about something else. Don't keep bothering me with these tales. It always pains me when anyone speaks of my honored master. We'll let your oath stand, but I wish he would return as much as Queen Penelope, his aged father Laertes, and his son Telemachus do. I'm terribly worried about his son, too. Young Telemachus was growing quickly into a fine man, and he was sure to be as noble in appearance and spirit as his father. But some god or man has unsettled his mind, and he's gone off to Pylos to seek news of his father. The suitors are lying in wait for him on his way home, hoping to wipe out the name of Arcesius from Ithaca forever. But let's not talk about him anymore. If Zeus protects him, he'll escape safely, otherwise, he'll be caught. Now, old man, tell me your own story. I want to know who you are and where you come from. Tell me about your hometown and parents, what kind of ship you arrived in, how the crew brought you to Ithaca, and what country they claim to be from. You couldn't have come by land.
Odysseus answered,
I will tell you everything. If we had enough meat and wine, and nothing else to do but sit here in this hut, eating and drinking while the others went to their work, I could easily talk for a whole year without finishing the story of the sorrows the heavens have sent my way. I was born in Crete. My father was a wealthy man with many sons born in marriage, but I was the son of a slave woman he had purchased as a concubine. Nevertheless, my father, Castor, son of Hylax, treated me equally with my brothers born in wedlock. I am proud of his lineage, for he was highly respected among the Cretans for his wealth, prosperity, and his sons' bravery. However, after death took my father to the house of Hades, his sons divided his estate and drew lots for their shares. They gave me a very small plot of land and little else. Even so, my bravery allowed me to marry into a rich family, for I was not one to boast or shirk on the battlefield. That's all in the past now. But just as you can tell what the ear of grain was like by looking at the straw, I have endured more than enough hardship. Ares and Athena made me a formidable warrior. When men were chosen to ambush the enemy, I never gave death a second thought. I was always the first to leap forward, spearing every foe I could overtake. That was my way in battle, but I had no interest in farm work or the frugal home life of raising children. My joy was in ships, fighting, javelins, and bows, things that make most men shudder just to think of them. But just as each person has their own preferences, I was naturally drawn to these things. Before the Achaeans sailed for Troy, I led men and ships on foreign expeditions 9 times, accumulating great wealth. I always chose the best of the spoils first, and later an even larger share was allotted to me. My household quickly prospered, and I became a respected figure among the Cretans. But when Zeus ordained that terrible expedition where so many would perish, the people demanded that I and Idomeneus lead their ships to Troy. Their insistence was so strong that there was no way to refuse. There we fought for 9 long years, and in the 10th we sacked the city of Priam. Then, as the gods willed, we scattered and sailed for home. It was then that Zeus devised misfortune for me. I had barely enjoyed one happy month with my children, wife, and property when the idea of invading Egypt came to me. So I fitted out a fine fleet and manned it with soldiers. There were 9 ships, and people flocked to fill them. For 6 days, my men and I feasted, and I provided many victims for sacrifices to the gods and for themselves. But on the 7th day we boarded our ships and set sail from Crete. A fair north wind pushed us from behind. None of our ships encountered problems, and no one on board fell ill. We simply sat back and let the wind and the steersmen guide our ships. On the 5th day we reached the river Aegyptus. I moored our ships in the river there and ordered my men to guard them, while I sent out scouts to reconnoiter from every vantage point. But my men disobeyed my orders and acted on their own. They ravaged the land of the Egyptians, killing men and taking women and children captive. The alarm quickly reached the city, and when they heard the war cry, the Egyptians poured out at daybreak. The plain was filled with horsemen, foot soldiers, and the gleam of armor. Then Zeus spread panic among my men. They realized they were surrounded and could no longer face the enemy. The Egyptians killed many of us and took the rest alive for forced labor. However, Zeus put an idea into my mind. I wish I had died then and there in Egypt, for much more sorrow awaited me. I took off my helmet and shield and dropped my spear. Then I went straight to the king's chariot, knelt, and kissed his knees. The king spared my life, bade me get into his chariot, and took me, weeping, to his own home. Many rushed at me with their ash spears, furious and trying to kill me, but the king protected me. He feared the wrath of Zeus, the protector of strangers, who punishes those who do evil. I stayed there for 7 years, gathering much wealth from the Egyptians, for they all gave me something. But as the 8th year approached, a cunning Phoenician appeared, a man who had committed all sorts of villainy. He persuaded me to go with him to Phoenicia, where his house and possessions were. I stayed there for a full 12 months. But after that time, when the same season came around again, he put me on a ship bound for Libya. He pretended we were going to transport cargo together, but his real intention was to sell me as a slave and keep the money. I suspected his plan, but I had no choice but to board the ship with him. The ship sailed before a fresh north wind until we reached the sea between Crete and Libya. There, however, Zeus decided to destroy us. As soon as we were far from Crete, with nothing but sea and sky visible, the god gathered black clouds over our ship, and the sea beneath grew dark. Then Zeus unleashed his thunderbolts, and the ship spun around, struck by lightning, filling with fire and brimstone. All the sailors fell into the sea. They floated in the water around the ship like countless seagulls, but the god soon stripped them of any chance of returning home. I was utterly dismayed. But Zeus sent the ship's mast within my reach, and I clung to it, drifting through the fierce storm, saving my life. I drifted for 9 days, and on the 10th night, in the darkness, a great wave washed me ashore on the Thesprotian coast. There, Phidon, king of the Thesprotians, treated me kindly without asking for any payment. This was because the king's son found me, nearly dead from cold and exhaustion, took my hand, led me to his father's house and gave me clothes. It was there that I heard news of Odysseus. The king told me that Odysseus had visited him on his way home, staying there, and that he had treated him with great hospitality. The king also showed me the treasures Odysseus had gathered, gold and wrought iron. There was enough treasure left in King Phidon's house to support his family for 10 generations. But the king said Odysseus had gone to Dodona. He went there to learn Zeus's will from the god's sacred oak tree, to know whether he should return to Ithaca openly or in secret after such a long absence. Furthermore, the king swore in my presence, making drink offerings in his own house, that a ship was already waiting by the water, and a crew had been found to take Odysseus home. However, the king sent me off before Odysseus returned. There happened to be a Thesprotian ship sailing for Dulichium, the wheat-growing island, and the king earnestly instructed its captains to take me safely to King Acastus. These men hatched a plot against me that would have plunged me into the deepest misery. As soon as the ship was some distance from land, they decided to sell me as a slave. They stripped me of the shirt and cloak I was wearing, giving me instead these old, tattered rags you see now. Then, towards nightfall, they reached the tilled lands of Ithaca. There, they bound me securely with a strong rope inside the ship, while they went ashore to prepare their supper by the sea. But the gods soon loosened my bonds. I pulled my rags over my head and slid down the rudder into the sea. I swam with all my might, getting far away from them, then came ashore near a thick wood where I hid myself. They were furious that I had escaped and searched for me, but eventually they decided it was useless and returned to their ship. After hiding me so easily, the gods then led me to a good man's door. It seems I am not destined to die just yet.
Eumaeus, the swineherd, replied,
Your tale of misfortune is truly fascinating, but I simply cannot believe the part about Odysseus. Why would a man like you go around telling such lies? I know more than anyone about my master's return. It's clear the gods all despise him. Otherwise, they would have taken him during the Trojan War, or let him die honorably among his friends when the fighting was over. Then the Achaeans would have built a burial mound over his remains, and his son would have inherited his fame. But now, the storm winds have swept him away, and we have no idea where he's gone. I live out here in this remote place with my pigs. I never go to town unless Queen Penelope sends for me, usually when there's news about King Odysseus. Then everyone crowds around me, showering me with questions. Some mourn the king's absence, but many others are happy because they can feast on his wealth for free. Honestly, I haven't really listened to anyone since I was tricked by an Aetolian. He had killed a man and wandered a long way before finally reaching my home, and I treated him very kindly. He claimed he'd seen Odysseus with Idomeneus among the Cretans, repairing ships damaged in a storm. He said Odysseus would return the next summer or autumn with his men, bringing back great riches. So now, you poor old man, don't try to flatter me with false hopes just because fate has brought you to my door. I'm not treating you kindly for any such reason. It's only out of respect and fear for Zeus, the god who protects guests, and because I pity you.
Odysseus replied,
I see you don't believe me. I've even sworn an oath and still you won't trust me. So, let's make a deal and call all the gods in heaven to witness it. If your master returns home, give me a warm cloak and tunic and send me to Dulichium where I wish to go. But if he doesn't return as I say he will, have your men throw me from that cliff over there. Let it be a warning to other wanderers not to go around telling lies.
What a ridiculous sight I would be, both now and in the future, if I were to kill you after welcoming you into my hut and showing you hospitality.
Eumaeus replied,
If I did such a thing, I would truly have to beg the gods for forgiveness. But it's almost supper time now. My men will be here soon, and I hope we can prepare a delicious supper together.
As they spoke, the other swineherds arrived, driving their pigs. The pigs were to be penned for the night, and they let out tremendous squeals as they were herded into their sties. Eumaeus called to his men,
Bring in the best pig you have. We'll sacrifice it for this stranger, and we'll all enjoy some meat ourselves. We've worked hard raising these pigs for so long, while others usually reap the rewards of our labor.
Eumaeus began chopping firewood, while the others brought in a fine, fat 5-year-old boar and placed it before the altar. Eumaeus didn't forget the gods. He was a man of deep faith, so first, he cut bristles from the pig's face and threw them into the fire, praying to all the gods for Odysseus's safe return home. He then stunned the pig with an oak club he'd saved from his firewood chopping, while the others quickly slaughtered and singed it. After butchering the pig, Eumaeus cut raw pieces from each joint and placed them on some fat. He sprinkled these with barley meal and laid them on the glowing embers. The rest of the meat was cut into small pieces, skewered, and roasted until done. Once cooked, the meat was taken off the spits and piled high on the dresser. Eumaeus, a truly fair man, then stood up to give everyone their share. He divided it into 7 portions. 1 portion he set aside for Hermes, son of Maia, and the nymphs, offering a prayer as he did so. He then distributed the remaining portions fairly to each man. As a special mark of honor, he gave Odysseus long slices of meat from the loin. Odysseus was greatly pleased. Odysseus said,
Eumaeus, I hope Zeus shows you as much favor as you've shown me, an outcast.
Eumaeus, the swineherd, replied.
Go on, my friend, enjoy your supper, humble as it is. The gods grant some things and take others away, just as they see fit, for they can do whatever they choose.
As soon as he finished speaking, Eumaeus cut off the first piece of meat and offered it as a burnt sacrifice to the immortal gods. Then he poured a drink offering, placed a cup in Odysseus's hand, and sat down to his own portion. Messalius brought them their bread. Eumaeus had bought Messalius with his own money from among the Taphians during his master Odysseus's absence. He hadn't said a word about it to Queen Penelope or Laertes. They all reached for the delicious food before them, eating and drinking until they were full. When the meal was over, Messalius cleared away the leftover bread, and after their hearty supper, everyone went to bed. Night fell, bringing a fierce storm and pitch-black darkness, for there was no moon. Rain poured relentlessly, and a strong, damp wind blew from the west. Odysseus wondered if Eumaeus, given the excellent care he was providing, would offer his own cloak or have one of his men bring him one. He wanted to test his generosity. Odysseus said,
Eumaeus and all of you here, listen to me. After I've said a prayer, I have a story to tell. It's the wine that makes me talk so much. Wine can make even a wise man sing, laugh foolishly, dance, and say many things better left unsaid. But since I've started, I'll continue. Oh, how I wish I were still young and strong, like when we set up an ambush before Troy. Menelaus and Odysseus were the leaders, but I also commanded as they wished. When we reached the city walls, we crouched beneath our armor, hiding among the thick reeds and brushwood that grew around the swamp. A biting cold swept in with the north wind. Tiny, fine snow fell like hoarfrost, and our shields were covered thick with rime. All the other soldiers had cloaks and tunics, and slept comfortably enough with their shields over their shoulders. But I had carelessly left my cloak behind, not thinking it would get so cold, and had gone out with only my tunic and shield. When 2/3 of the night had passed and the stars had shifted, I nudged Odysseus, who was sleeping close beside me, with my elbow. He immediately listened to what I had to say. Odysseus,
I said to him,
this cold will be the death of me. I have no cloak. Some god must have tricked me into setting out with only my tunic, and now I don't know what to do.
The wise and brave Odysseus immediately came up with a clever plan. He whispered,
Keep still, or the others will hear you.
Then he propped himself up on his elbow and raised his head. He said,
Friends, I've just had a dream sent from the heavens while I slept. We're too far from the ships. I wish someone would go and tell Agamemnon to send us more men right away.
At this, Thoas, son of Andremon, immediately threw off his cloak and ran toward the ships. I took the cloak and lay in it comfortably until morning.
Oh, if only I were still young and strong like I was back then. Then one of you swineherds would surely give me a cloak, both out of kindness and respect for a brave soldier. But now my clothes are so shabby that people look down on me.
Eumaeus replied,
Old man, you've told a truly excellent story. Everything you've said so far is perfectly satisfactory. So, for now, you won't lack for clothing or anything else a distressed stranger might reasonably expect. However, tomorrow morning you'll have to put on your own old rags again. We don't have many spare cloaks or tunics here, each of us only has one. When Odysseus's son returns home, he will give you both a cloak and a tunic, and send you wherever you wish to go.
With that, Eumaeus stood up. He made a bed for Odysseus. He spread several goatskins and sheepskins on the ground in front of the fire. Odysseus lay down there. Eumaeus then covered him with a large, thick cloak he kept as a spare for exceptionally bad weather. So Odysseus slept, and the young men slept beside him. But the swineherd didn't like sleeping away from his pigs, so he prepared to go outside. Odysseus was pleased to see how well Eumaeus looked after his property, even in his master's absence. First, he slung his sword over his strong shoulders and put on a thick cloak to shield himself from the wind. He also took the skin of a large, well-fed goat and a javelin, just in case of an attack from men or dogs. Fully equipped, He headed to where his pigs were resting, camped under an overhanging rock that protected them from the north wind.